The Alkebu-Lan Revivalist Movement presents Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM and GalaxyAfriwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Weekly discussions and live debate on all issues affecting the African community at home and abroad. Tune in Mondays 8 to 10 p.m. and have your say as we talk it straight and make it plain. It's live, it's hot, it's scintillating, it's real. It's Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station.
Tendai Mwari, be thankful unto God. Greetings, Galaxy Radio family. You're tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Hosting tonight's show is Brother Omawali and myself, Sister Kai. It's Monday, the 20th of April, and it's 2 minutes past the hour of 8. Alkebu-Lan is known for keeping its finger on the pulse of the community, addressing the most pertinent and controversial issues some radio stations just won't touch. So keep it locked on 102.5 FM or www.galaxyafiwi.com and join us for the next 2 hours by calling 07983 852 952 or 07538 008 634. You can text us on 07572 222 156. On Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, we talk it straight and make it plain. This show is not for the faint-hearted. Yes, sisters and brothers, this is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on the Big G. And our discussion this evening is, what is behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa? What is behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa? Well, sisters and brothers, so much has been happening, but as usual on Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, we try and go deeper into what we may be just hearing on the news and hopefully not just highlight the issues, but come to an understanding and hopefully bring some solutions, or at least put forward some solutions to address the problems. Let's hear our sister Miriam Makeba. Tendai Mwari, yes, brothers and sisters, that was Miriam Makeba. And as you can, I'm sure, agree, a very, very powerful tune. It's called A Piece of Ground. And very relevant for the discussion that we're having this evening that you're going to join us in. And this is an opportunity for you also, sisters and brothers, to give a call to someone that you may know or text them and tell them the numbers that they need to call this evening. They can tune into 102.5 FM or www.galaxyafiwi.com. Any one of those vehicles, brothers and sisters, to join in this discussion this evening. And as always, we open the lines at a certain time, but you are more than welcome to text in anytime. So I'll give you the text number again so that you have it logged into your phone, because I know sometimes when the discussion is going on and you want to send something now, do it now, because obviously the lines open a little bit later than when we open the text. So these are numbers to text.
Text in on 07572 222 156.
Tendai Mwari, yes, hope you got those numbers, brothers and sisters. That's for this evening's program. Let me welcome my co-host, Brother Omawali. Tendai Mwari, Brother Omawali.
Tendai Mwari, Sister Kahi, giving thanks and praises to Mwari Nyakusika, God the creator of the universe, through the spirits of Mzumukuru, our great ancestors. Rumbitsu kuna Mwari Africa. To the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai Mwari. It is a joy to be an African, and it's a joy to be on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, yes, Brother Omawali. So much happening coming up this
Yeah,
weekend.
and so much we need to also commemorate and remind ourselves about. But I want to bring in straight away the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, Brother Leader Mbandaka. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, Brother Mwale, giving thanks and praises. I bring greetings, as always, in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, Alkebu-Lan, Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. Rumbidzokuna Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. And greater the joy it is to be in service to the most beautiful and most important people on the planet, the first of Mwari, God's creation, giving thanks and praises. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, Brother Leader Bandaka. Right. Brother Leader, of course, we had a very, very important event on Kuumba Day on Friday gone, and that was, of course, the memorial ceremony in honor of the life of our great Baba Yosef Ben Jokanan.
Tendai Mwari, yes, giving thanks and praises. The nation of Africa here in the UK, we say Africa UK, did indeed gather in fine numbers and in, enlightened spirit to honor the outstanding work and legacy of our great warrior scholar and grandmaster teacher Baba Yosef Ben Jokanan. And it was indeed an enriching and immensely successful occasion in many, many ways. And I'm thankful to Mwari Muzimukuru for every elder, brother, sister, every prince or princess who attended the ceremony. The feedback has been so encouraging. Brothers and sisters got so much out of being there to honor our Baba, to share in the enriching spirit of the occasion, and also what is really, really satisfying is to learn that our ceremony seemed to have gone viral in the United States. In fact, I think within 48 hours we had over 1,000 hits on the recorded live stream. So, that's really encouraging. And I saw a message from Baba Kwekudra, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, certainly a protege of Baba Ben, encouraging brothers and sisters in the United States to take some time to view the ceremony. So, we give thanks and praises unto Mwari Muzimukuru that this has been such an inspiration, not only to the African community, not only to Africa UK, but to the African world community, in particular Africa US, the African nation domiciled in the United States of America. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Yes, indeed. Tendai Mwari, my brother. Yes. And brothers and sisters, of course, it was a tremendous evening, very, very spiritually uplifting.
Yes, give thanks to Queen Mother Nzinga for that excellent reading of the eulogy, and we had an outstanding, as usual, a brilliant expose on the life and the works and the teachings of Baba Ben from our keynote speaker for the evening, and that was the what we call him now, the
history man,
the Black History Man, the Black History Man himself, our own homemade #1 scholar, outstanding warrior scholar in the person of our beloved brother Robin Walker, and that was a brilliant presentation, and of course we had tributes from a number of groups, organizations. The Pan-African Congress movement was represented. Our Coptic family as well was also represented. And we also had a presentation from Baba Clarence, a tribute from Baba Clarence on behalf of the Interim National African People's Parliament, which also included a word's work, I call it, a poem that was crafted shortly before that, specifically for that occasion, giving honor to the life of Baba Ben from one of the leading elders of our community, and of course our beloved Baba Reverend Huey Andrew also graced us with his presence and was able to do one of the readings from the Hosea sacred text of ancient Kemet to help to enrich the occasion. So, a blessed event, brothers and sisters, and we are thankful that we were able to deliver that ceremony to our community. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. You can also watch Baba Ben's Celebration of Life in full now on www.alkebu-Lan.org/Baba Ben Live. Alkebu-Lan spelled ALKEBULAN. That's alkebu-Lan.org/Baba Ben Live. Okay, Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, Sister Kai. And moving forward, we have on the 25th, this Imani Day, this Saturday coming, the Interim National African People's Party
Parliament.
Even,
brother,
We're coming up to this time, the
big deal.
general election is...
We're not running for elections, my brother. Not UK elections, anyway.
Mind you, somebody thought we were.
This is about...
I was looking for their...
This is about self-determination, about becoming masters of our own destiny.
Absolutely.
Once again, So, we're not looking for a little space, a little
We're
niche.
not looking for a little spot with... what's his name? The Labour guy?
Ed Miliband.
Ed Miliband.
Not at all. No, the Scottish.
The Scottish
Democratic.
The Scottish, the Welsh.
No, not at all.
Everybody looking for a little spot on the Labour ticket. So maybe we can get a little spot there, innit? What do you think?
None of that, my brother.
No?
None of that. This is about Papa Garvey's
But that's
vision.
real power, brother leader.
That is the illusion of power, my brother. That's the illusion of power. But we are about burning illusions. I think there's a sister in the Galaxy family who goes by the name of burning an illusion, or burning all illusions. All illusions. Well, that's one of the illusions we have to burn.
Maybe she can phone up and clarify. I'm sure you can get little power on the Labour ticket. I think we should try.
I am confident, my brother, you'll get an X beside that suggestion from our beloved sister.
But that's all we need, an X. Isn't it an X?
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Yes, brothers and sisters, the Interim National African People's Parliament, the General People's Assembly Recovery and Forward Plan, that's taking place this coming Imani Day, this coming Saturday, the 25th of April. 4:30 p.m. is when doors open. It's at the Queen Mother Moore School, which is care of the Clapham Methodist Church Hall, Nelson's Row, London, SW4, and the last two is at 7JR. My eyes are not what they used to be. 7JR. Brothers and sisters, Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Yes.
Did you want to say a little bit about...
just to say that this is about the building the Interim National African People's Parliament, brothers and sisters. It's about the vision of nation building, how we are systematically moving towards organizing ourselves as African people, domiciled here in the UK as a nation of people, and a nation of people is a group of people organized as a sovereign cultural and political entity. Now, oftentimes we agonize over what is the solution to the myriad of problems that we find ourselves facing and challenged by here in the UK, brothers and sisters. And I'm here to tell you that the solution to the problem has to be that we as African people must once again take control over our lives and must determine our own destiny, must become the masters of our own destiny once again. And the vision of the National African People's Parliament is about organizing. We can only do that if we are organized as a nation. That means we organize ourselves in a way that we have governance over our own lives. We establish our own economy as a people. We establish our own institutions, educational institutions, health institutions, housing institutions, social welfare institutions, and a variety of other institutions that will address the needs that we are in charge of. And we generate the resources in order to develop those institutions to serve our own interest as a people. So just to say very quickly, brothers and sisters, the International African People's Parliament is, of course, a nationwide independent representative body that is designed to promote, preserve, and protect the best interests of African people here in the UK. Other communities have their national representative bodies that speak on their behalf, that promotes their own interests. We do not have ours. This is our opportunity now to engage in that. And of course, we know that there has been some challenges along the way.
Which we will be addressing.
Which we will be addressing. Brothers and sisters may have heard all kinds of rumors about an incident that happened on the 7th of February that has been misrepresented in the public. Here is your opportunity to come and to hear the truth, to hear the facts.
You can ask your questions as well.
Ask questions, get answers about truthfully what has happened, and it's an opportunity for you, brothers and sisters, to factor in your own suggestions and ideas. And there will be a presentation also on the recovery and forward plan of the interim National African People's Parliament. And there is where, again, you will have the opportunity, brothers and sisters, to ask relevant questions and to factor in your own ideas into how this vision should move itself forward in service to the people, how this vision should move forward with the mandate of the people in whose name this vision is evolving. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Give thanks, Brother Leader.
So we look to see everybody on Saturday. This Saturday, brothers and sisters. 4:30, sharp start, so we can make full use of the time and we can make a significant step into the future in terms of planning and moving forward with the INAP vision and agenda. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. And just for us, brothers and sisters, who, as I said, you can go onto alkebu-Lan.org if you want to listen to the live stream of the Baba Ben Memorial Ceremony that took place Friday gone.
Or you can watch
You can hear his voice now.
Many people have asked me, is it possible for white people to teach black studies? And I have said, hell no. A man's history is not just some dates and names written down. History has emotion in it. And history is interpretation of events passed by. No white man can interpret my history for me, just as no Irishman will accept the interpretation of Irish history by an Englishman.
Tendai Mwari, yes, this is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com. Tendai Mwari, sisters and brothers, our discussion this evening is what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa. Tendai Mwari.
Yes, Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters. South Africa is currently in the midst of what are being widely described as xenophobic attacks on foreign nationals within the country, generally categorized as migrant workers or shop owners. The attacks have so far left several dead, against a backdrop of several thousand engaged in an anti-violence march. Other reports claim that over 300 arrests have been made in connection with the violence. One feature of this violence is it doesn't appear to be a blanket anti-immigrant. The main targets are overwhelmingly, but though not exclusively, other Africans from neighboring Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique, as well as further afield from DR Congo, Somalia, and Nigeria, prompting the likes of commentator Sibuso Shabalala in consideration of the impact of Afriphobia to ponder, why is it that a Somali man can run a shop in a township, get raided and beaten up, while a white immigrant in town continues to run a restaurant full of patrons? So-called anti-immigrant violence is not a new phenomenon, however. In an article entitled Misdirected Violence in South Africa, from June 2008, Luwezi Kinshasa, Secretary General of the African Socialist International, asserts many observers are not surprised by this violence. There have been regular anti-immigrant campaigns for years in the South African neocolonial press. South Africa media coverage of so-called foreigners in a wide range of sources is overwhelmingly negative, relying on stereotypes about Africans coming from outside. South Africans regard them as criminals, illegal, or job seekers. Crucially, the economy, including the land, is still controlled by Europeans who, within the context of the reports, do not generally appear to be regarded as foreigners. Paradoxically, then, it is the ANC government that are regarded by some as the real custodians of foreign interest. The country has had an African Minister of Finance for less than one of the 21 years since the quote-unquote free elections of 1994 that brought Nelson Mandela's ANC government to power. In this vein, Julius Malema, leader of the economic freedom fighters, opines the state, being the elder for the whole of society, becomes responsible for all the violence meted against our foreign nationals. It was through the state that our people were told that resolution to differences should not be through violence. It was under your leadership that when you disagreed with people at Maracana, you killed them because you never believed in peaceful resolution of differences. It is also alleged that the inequalities are profoundly manifest in the area of social justice, such as the release of the primeval apartheid death squad leader Eugene de Kock, who was responsible for hundreds of murders and was released 19 years into a 212-year sentence in the interests of nation building and reconciliation, according to the Justice Minister. Yet the PAC and the APLA political prisoners, such as Kenny Motsami, still languish in jail. What these political prisoners represent is a drive towards self-determination not evident in much of the country's political scene. However, it could be argued that it is in some ways ascendant with the move to tear down representations of South Africa's inglorious racist past. Like, for example, the statue of Cecil Rhodes at the University of Cape Town. Some commentators have even suggested that the quote-unquote xenophobia outbreak is a convenient diversion from that orientation. So, brothers and sisters, this evening we ask the question, what is behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa? Why are Europeans largely escaping the violence? Does the South African media stoke anti-immigrant sentiments? Why is South Africa one of the most unequal nations on the planet? Is the ANC government responsible? Who really controls South Africa? Is the early release of mass murderers the best way to bring about nation building and reconciliation? Is the xenophobic violence a created diversion created against a nascent movement for self-determination? Our special guests this evening are none other than the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, Brother Leader Bandaka. We will be joined by Brother Molani Ngala, who is the president, who is a political commentator and former chair of the ANC London branch. And we also have Baba Buntu, otherwise known as Amani Olubanjo Buntu, who is founder and executive director of the Ubuksoni Solutions, a community development capacity building organization based in Azania, South Africa, specializing in cultural events, education training, production, management, and social entrepreneurship. Tendai Mwari, and of course, brothers and sisters may remember Brother Buntu from our Kwanzaa Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Okay, Tendai Mwari. So we're going to be joined shortly by Brother Ala live in the studio. Brother Baba Buntu is coming to us from South Africa. And I just want to get some initial thoughts from yourself, Brother Leader Mbandaka. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Right. Okay. Now, Brother Leader, this so-called xenophobic violence in South Africa, I just want to know, I just want to try and get an understanding of it. Our people are perceived as foreign nationals. These are African people, yet Europeans are seen as more part of the fabric of society. How is that distinction made? How can the people make that kind of distinction? Tinamar.
Yes, Tendai. I mean, this is a most painful development taking place in our beloved motherland, this southern tip of our beloved motherland, South Africa. But of course, we all know the inglorious history of that part of our motherland. And we're not just talking about apartheid from 1948 onwards. We're talking about over 350 years of the imposition of white supremacy. And how that has devastated the lives of African people, and that devastation is not only in terms of the physical and economic effects, but also the psychological and emotional effects in terms of how we see ourselves, in terms of our whole concept of who we are as a people, how we identify ourselves as a people, and how we relate to each other as African people. And what we see as the latest spate of so-called genocidal acts against foreign nationals, quote unquote. I mean, this is media language. We know it's far more complex than that. We know it's a strange phenomenon, because if we were going after foreigners, then everything that constitutes a foreigner, would
look unlike you.
Well, exactly. But even if you perceive Africans as foreigners, and what about Chinese nationals who are in South Africa? What about European nationals who are in South Africa? What about Arab nationals who are in South Africa? We don't hear of attacks on these proper foreigners.
Is it something coded in our chromosomes that we only attack?
No, it's not. It's
African
not.
people.
No, this is the point I'm making. This is the point I'm making, which is it's a curious phenomenon, whereby, according to reports, the attack is from Africans on Africans who perceive other Africans as foreigners, Africans who come from neighboring countries who were involved in supporting Africans in South Africa in the fight against apartheid, African nations who were havens of safety for Africans in South Africa who were escaping apartheid, who now are being perceived, if we were to look at it at face value, but it's far more complex than that. And we're going to hear from Brother Ala in a moment, but it is far more complex than that. And for us to understand this phenomenon, we have to look at it within the context of the historical and the political context of the South African situation. But may I just say very quickly, before we bring our brother in, I am deeply concerned that being aware that there are unrests in South Africa presently, especially by young people, students. We know about the University of Cape Town and the
statue of Cecil
the
Rhodes.
demonstrations that have taken place demanding the removal of the statue of Cecil Rhodes. But it's not just about Cecil Rhodes, but about white supremacy.
Symbolism.
Yes, as a symbolism of white supremacy, and also challenging the establishment to bring an end to Eurocentric the Eurocentric system of education and white supremacy as a whole, which still dominates and still grips South Africa. And then you had in the University of KwaZulu-Natal, you also had protests against is it King George V statue, based on the same rejection of what the symbols of white supremacy, and the same rejection of a Eurocentric education. And what we saw when that statue was actually removed, what the Cecil Rhodes statue, when it was actually removed, what we saw was...
That's the one in Cape Town. Was that the one
in the University of Cape Town? What we saw was students who were protesting in a manner that was reminiscent of apartheid South Africa. And some of the same songs that were being sung 20, 30 years ago in defiance of apartheid were some of the same songs that these students were singing. They were defacing, they defaced the statue, they were beating the statue, they put a noose around the neck of the statue, which shows that this perpetuation,
contempt
of and the perpetuation of white supremacy in South Africa is still very, very rampant and very real in the lives of our people. Now, one wonders if this spate of attacks against foreigners, which is well disseminated in the media, and we hear of the Zulu king making pronouncements against foreigners and so on. One wonders what this is really about, and whether this is a smoke screen for the ongoing unrest of African people in South Africa, who realize that the so-called dismantling of apartheid has never been a real transformation, and that white supremacy still reigns in South Africa. African people in their own lands are still the victims of white supremacy, Eurocentric control of the land, the economy, and are still suffering social and economic destitution, and are saying we're not prepared to stand for this anymore. And one wonders whether this is some kind of sinister political machination,
whitewash,
that is designed to suppress the potential of an uprising. Tendai Mwari.
Welcome, Brother Tala. Welcome to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. We have had you on our programs over the years at a different location, but we're back interacting with you again. You're looking well, my brother.
Yeah, of course, Tandamara.
Right. Now, our main question is, of course, is what is behind the quote-unquote xenophobic violence in South Africa? Before I ask you that question, do you have any sort of updated reports on what is actually taking place? Any figures in terms of any injuries, any deaths, anything like that? Do you have any information?
I think
any updated information?
Yeah. First and foremost, Tandamara.
Good
evening.
Good evening, my brother.
You and the listeners of Galaxy Radio Station. As you may be aware that 2 days ago we were hearing a very brutal situation where we heard about our brothers from Libya who were trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea, who wished to have a better life in Europe. And we know that quite a number of them, it's about now, I think, 1,500 estimation of these African brothers who were trying to have a better life, but
brothers and sisters and children.
Unfortunately, some of them could not make this. I'm starting by saying this because I want you to come closer to me to understand that this is not only a South African crisis.
Absolutely.
Or a South African problem. I think it's a continent problem. It's a problem that leaders within our continent, particularly within the African Union, must come up with better programs to equip our people. Because if you look at these things, Tanamarai, they always have a significant background that challenge people to behave in certain manner or to not love themselves. Because when you do not have an understanding, there's something called love begins to disappear. In this case, we talk about Africans loving themselves, being African, the pride of Africa, the hope of being in Africa, knowing that African sun will arise at one stage. I think that's where we must start. We must start to ask ourselves, does Africa still have hope? Do African people see themselves as the better people among other in the world? Those are the things that we must start before we even go to the challenge of a highest number of unemployment in Africa, tribal challenges, race challenges, unemployment, discrimination of one another. But we must, as African brothers and sisters and our leaders, start to look at what is it.
Brother Nala, I appreciate those very, very important points, and they are important. What I want to try to get to, though, is what is happening specifically in South Africa in relation to this so-called xenophobic violence and what is behind it. So, could we just? I appreciate the bigger picture that you are painting for us. But we want to home in. Our program is very short. We got our callers waiting.
Sure.
So we want to get straight to the nub of the question. Really, in your opinion, you're a political commentator. You were formerly part of the ANC government, indeed. So could you just enlighten us from in your esteemed opinion, what is behind these attacks?
I must indicate, Tanamara, I'm a full member of the ANC in good standing. I'm not in part. I'm a full member of the ANC. But here I come on my...
You're a full member of the ANC. All right, okay.
To speak as to, look, there is this element of not loving ourselves. And there's a high element of perhaps to say, we don't have enough jobs, job creation. Because if we are going to say we attack one another because of you are African from another country, we are missing the place of this discussion. There are very difficult challenges that are facing our brothers and sisters who are South African by documents of so-called that they receive from Home Affairs. And then that makes them to label other brothers and sisters from other African countries as foreigners. We must look at these things because look, when all this begin to start in South Africa, we know exactly what happens in 2008, the brutal attack towards Africans. But if we come exactly now, we must also be in position to say, some leaders must take responsibility. Because you can't have someone like the king who will go out there and make a statement.
This is the Zulu king you're talking about?
Yeah,
the KwaZulu-Natal?
Yes. Look, the fellow did make a statement. I understand Zulu, I speak Zulu, I hear, although my mother tongue is Xhosa. He did make a statement, whatever statement that he made, but it was not a rightful one.
Right.
It was not a suited statement for somebody of his caliber. Yeah, for somebody of a king's caliber to make such a statement in public area. It's not something that promotes...
For the sake of our listeners, what did he say?
Well, look, the king on his own capacity is referring as to what is the culture of perhaps the South African people, in this case the Zulu people. It's not a nature of theirs that they will stay in another country for so many, too long, And after some time, people will will return back to South Africa. But those statements are not helping, because you make such a statement in a country that is unstable in terms of relationship between the Africans and the South Africans. But let's not also...
Did he not also sort of paint some kind of characterization of these so-called foreigners?
No,
as prone to criminality, and that's certainly what the press has said. What did he say that the press has defined as emotive and being the cause of inciting the violence towards these so-called foreign nationals? What did the king say?
Well, look, the press have, you know that in South Africa there's a freedom of press, there's a human right. We're a democratic republic country. Everybody has freedom to say what they want. But also, we must be in position to adulate leaders, what they have said correctly, and be in position to translate what they said in their mother tongue in a way that it's fair.
So are you saying that he didn't say that these foreigners are prone to,
what I'm saying is that
criminality? Did he or did he not?
No,
say
what I'm
things?
saying is that perhaps somebody
they're coming to South Africa to take the jobs of the South Africans.
Allow me to finish.
You know, I'm just saying these as you know, these are the allegations that are being made in the press, in the media. Did he or did he not say these things?
Look, this allegation you are talking about, they are very big, because as we currently speak now, there's a group of South Africans globally, not outside, not other nations, but South Africans, who are taking the king himself to the European court. So let's wait for that process to go in. I don't want to stipulate, but what I want to say
not
to you
to
is
press, but you said that you did hear the comments that he made.
But what I'm saying,
so you are
is
in a
that
position to
it's not
confirm
helping.
These were public remarks that he made, right or wrong? Public remarks.
Allow me to.
You said some things in public, yes?
Yes. Allow
so
me
did he or did he not say these things about our brothers and sisters from neighboring African countries, neighboring to South Africa? Did he characterize them as criminals, as drug addicts?
The king has
as coming there to take their jobs.
You must remember that the king has all the rights to speak, and as well as our African brothers. By the way, they are part and parcel of the people who put bread in the table of a king, because they pay tax.
By saying neither yes or no, people might infer that he did say these things and you are trying to protect him.
No, why will I protect the king? But I'm trying to say exactly what he has said.
I'm just saying how it could be interpreted, because
what is happening is that the media's interpretation of to what the king have said. You yourself listen, you realize that...
You heard him. So you're in a position to confirm that the media has represented him correctly or misrepresented him. So has the media misrepresented what he has said? Did he not say these things? And if he didn't say these things, what is it that he said that was so controversial?
What I'm saying to you, Tanara, is that what the king have said was not helpful to the situation.
So what did he say that wasn't helpful?
The fact that... you will, as an adult, beneficiary of our taxpayers, including the foreigners that you are labeling them foreigners, because those people pay tax.
So he labeled these Africans from neighboring African countries as foreigners.
Of course, he used those words. He himself, he can't deny that. So
sorry, I just want to interject here, just for the sake of our listeners, my brother, because we're trying to get you to kind of clarify in one way or the next, but we're not quite getting there yet. Right, so he is alleged to have said in Zulu, "We urge all foreigners to pack their bags and leave." I understand the king departed from his prepared speech and lamented the weakness in the policing of the country's borders. He said, "This has led to the country being a haven for illegal immigrants who violate and undermine the country's laws." He then urged the police to catch those who violate the country's laws and return them to whence they came. This is this is quote. This is what he's alleged to have said. He said they found nothing offensive about this or xenophobic. Right. So these are the comments he's alleged to have said. But I want to move on because, Brother Zada, because our listeners at least now are clear in terms of what he certainly has alleged to say. He's certainly adding fuel to the fire. We also heard from Luwezi Kinshasa, Secretary General of the African Socialist International, who asserts that many observers are not surprised by this violence. There have been regular anti-immigrant campaigns for years in South Africa, in the South African neocolonial press. South African media coverage of so-called foreigners in a wide range of sources is overwhelmingly negative, relying on stereotypes about Africans coming from outside, regarded as criminals, illegals, and job stealers. Do you recognize those type of comments from the national press?
Look, Tandamara,
my brother.
this is the same.
Please
thing.
help us.
Yeah.
We want some direct answers this evening,
I don't
my brother.
just only want to help you. I want you to have a clear picture of this, so
that would help us greatly.
So that tomorrow we all have a better understanding and have a clear view as to how we can solve this problem.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Not only as South Africans, but as Africans.
As Africans, absolutely.
And if at times we are going to wait for our leaders to assist in these things, clearly we are going to be walking like donkeys, where we have to be in a marathon to develop programs that are going to make our people feel comfortable as Africans to move one place to another. Let me respond to the press.
The press. Thank you.
You know very well that press sells papers to get money. But there's one thing that we can't deny, and is that the killing of our brothers, I think it has been happening in a way that now those who are doing this have not been facing justice. And that thing alone makes others to think, I can do it.
Right.
Now, we can go back and ask ourselves, in 2008, when the same thing struck in South Africa, this very, very, very uncomfortable thing among each other, how many of those were arrested at that time that have faced the full justice of South Africa? I'm not talking about arresting people for the sake of having news and say I've arrested this number, but I'm talking about those who have been under the full count of law, imprisonment.
Do you think those people may have been negatively influenced by the press?
Look, the press has its own role to play here, because...
And what would that role be?
It is, of course, to divide us as African.
Right. So you're resonated with the point of view that I expressed just now. In terms
of course, I
wasn't sure. I wasn't quite sure.
I salute those, but I have to.
Would it be correct to say that largely European-controlled press?
No, look. Let's just start first to say, how do we define European press when these news have been first published in our own continent?
European money. European business.
You can say that. You can say that. But the question I'm asking, and I want us to not just respond to it, but position ourselves as to, before we say these people are Europeans in our own land, but who are the people who are reporting? It seems to be our own brothers and sisters on the ground, pick up the information and providing to those who are labeling them Europeans. Now, we must, of course, be conscious about this.
Who are the peer masters? Are the peer masters not Europeans?
Are we wanting to say
are the peer masters Europeans?
But that question, should we ask it like this? Are we feeding the masters, or are we subjecting ourselves and selling our brothers because of those?
No, we have our responsibilities, but I'm going from the notion of he who pays the fiddler calls the tune. Every newspaper has its editorial policy.
Sure.
And the foot soldiers for those newspapers can only will be under instruction to bring back the type of material that that would fit the editorial policy. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I think in that sentence alone, it's a question we can throw back to the president of the country and say, President, you have seen many things have been published, and at times are not true stories, and the medians are very free to publish whatever they want to publish, damaging or not damaging.
Okay.
But we must develop a way to say, but if you are a proudly African, surely you can't publish this. Sometimes we must take responsibility as human, as parents, as brothers and sisters, and say, look, man, I'm a father. I don't think that is necessary to be published about another father or another brother. Those are the things that we must have, which is, it goes back to the fundamental roots of who we are. Our late former President Nelson Mandela was calling for more of a spirit of Ubuntu. You are who you are because of others.
Right.
That is what we are missing.
Okay. Just repeat that definition of what Ubuntu means.
You are who you are because of others.
Right.
I think we are missing that, because I say that, Tandamarai,
Tandamarai,
purely because before we obtained democracy in South Africa in 1994, let me take you back in 1961, when the ANC were banned to operate in South Africa. Our liberation leaders were outside in Lusaka, in Tanzania, in Zimbabwe. At the time was called many names. But after that, yes, leading from 1961 to 1965, you may even recall that our late President Nelson Mandela himself left South Africa, and he was in Ethiopia. It was a foreign land, totally, where Mandela himself was given a gun. Why he was given a gun? He was a foreigner in that country. Because there were people who wanted to kill him. So the gun was to defend himself. But I'm not saying let's give guns to those foreigners who are in South Africa to defend themselves. But what I'm saying is this, Tandamarai. There is a huge gap of political consciousness education among our South African brothers and sisters, which also our African brothers must also take and undertake this education. Because once we are aware of who we are, we can then be in a better position to reclaim our history. And our history comes with love. You will understand that, Tandamarai, an African can't pass by one village to another hungry. People will stop you and say, hey, why you are so hungry like this? You need water. You can go to another house and ask for water. They will give you.
Brother Ngala.
But what happened with our people today?
Can I just ask you, just slightly move on here now. Another aspect of this is some of the blame is also levied at the government themselves in terms of what developments or lack of development that's taken place in the country. I mean, the population of Africans is, well, the poor, the impoverished people is 90% of the country, and they are 79.5% of the population. These are some figures that we have here. I'm sure, they kind of resonate with you. However, in terms of the wealth is very much in the control of Europeans still. Some 80 to 85% of the country's wealth is in the control of non-Africans, predominantly Europeans. Now, this is 21 years since the so-called free elections of 1994 that brought Nelson Mandela to power. How do you explain these inadequacies, these differences, these vast differences in a country that is controlled now by African people? Or is it controlled by African people?
Let me respond perhaps to the middle of your question, Tandamarai. And that is Nelson Mandela brought to power. The late president was not brought to power.
Well, I didn't say he was brought to power.
I think I did quite hear you very well. My ears are
Oh,
well
yes,
cleaned up.
I brought the government to power, yeah.
All
The
right.
free elections
well,
the free elections of 1994 brought the government to power.
yes.
Yeah, that's the term
when
I
we
used.
put it as collectively, I'm much more
Oh, you're more comfortable with
yes. But if we
that. But a lot of our
single,
people are very, very uncomfortable with what's happening
we
in
may
South
not be
Africa
comfortable
right
with
now.
what is happening. But
we are impoverished. African people are impoverished.
let me answer this question perhaps in a most different way.
Okay.
By saying, Tandamara, I had the opportunity 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went with one of our ministers here at...
In London?
yes, he's here in London. At I give you this place, where a Lancaster House.
Okay.
There it was a mineral conference,
Mm-hmm.
where I won't mention the company's name,
Okay.
but it was this European fellow who stand up and give us a reflection as to, there were so lots of things happening in South Africa at that time. You had youth league saying let's nationalize the mines. You had various people say if we nationalize the mines, we'll have better program to equip our people. You will nationalize the bank, you will be able to give free school scholarship to our people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it was between this process where it was not certain as to where South African mineral resources will be going in the next year. So I had an opportunity to be in this place where this gentleman shocked me very, very much so that I was disturbed until today about what I heard. He said his company will be able to supply outside countries with mineral resources for the next century without Africa providing them. And that was a shock to me, because I asked myself one question. If they are able to do that, that means they have taken enough already. And of course that goes back to your own question that have we benefited yet?
The inequalities of wealth distribution.
Oh yes, it's very big. When we talk about the gap between the poor and the rich and the middle class.
This is my question. The ANC government have been in power for the last 21 years. Why is there still such inequalities, and does that not have a detrimental impact on on Africans from South Africa who are attacking, quote unquote, shopkeepers, etc., coming from other countries like Sudan, Somalia, etc., other countries?
There's one thing we must not
is that
confuse.
Is the fact that they are impoverished and they're seeing other Africans like themselves?
Oh,
as a threat.
Yeah.
As a threat.
I think there's few things. I think if we had enough time, I would like to outline to you very boldly that to say, look, let's not confuse one thing here. You see, people who are able to put fuel in another person's body and others watch, and when that person is burning, others are stealing what belongs to that person. We can't confuse that to label and say there's this high level of unemployment. These people are criminals, simple and clear.
But you spoke about the high level of
yes,
unemployment earlier on.
That is another.
Who are you saying?
There is
and who are the criminals?
This is a deep.
Brother,
it's not an easy thing, Tanamara. It's not one element.
Who are you saying are the criminals? Who are you saying?
Of course, our brothers and sisters from South Africa.
The ones who are doing the
killing.
Those
who are killing, because you are killing a human.
But isn't that the symptom? Aren't those symptoms of the problem rather than the core of the problem? We're trying to get a sense of what we need is an analysis of the cause, the core of the problem, or the cause of the problem. Now, the killing is abhorrent.
Sure.
It should not be happening. And yes, we would want to know that the perpetrators are brought to justice.
Sure.
But as you know, my brother, that will not solve the problem. If you have Africans who are still in abject poverty in a land of plenty,
in their own
country. There is wealth abundantly in South Africa. The majority of Europeans are enjoying that wealth. The Chinese are now moving in to also exploit that wealth. And Africans are, the ordinary African, the overwhelming majority of Africans are suffering from abject poverty and economic destitution. Yeah? And it seems as though because of this, politicians are able to use emotive terms and emotive language to turn
negative
one
propaganda.
sector of Africans against another sector of Africans, and whip up this kind of this
euphoria,
kind of, or this kind of
negativity.
Hatred or this kind of rivalry. That seems to be at the core of what is happening here. Now, Brother Omowale is really seeking to explore the issue from the point of view of we have a government that appears to be an African government that was first led by Nelson Mandela, then Thabo Mbeki, and now Jacob Zuma. After 21 years of the ANC, the material situation in South Africa really has not changed significantly.
In fact, it's actually deteriorated.
In fact, it has got worse. The gap between white rich and black poor has extended under the ANC. There has been no redistribution of wealth, no redistribution of power in South Africa. So white people commandeer the wealth, white people commandeer the power. They control over 95% of the economy, over 80% of the land. Yeah, and that, of course, the businesses and the industries and so on are controlled largely by and large by the Europeans. And so Africans still have to rely on Europeans who are still very, very racist in their attitude in South Africa. And ordinary Africans are left to fight for the pickings. Has the ANC government let us down?
Look, let me firstly, I want to respond to the land element and the wealth distribution, and the politicians that you assume that they are the one who are behind all this. I'll ask one question: has there been any leader politically in South Africa that have spoke against foreigners? Any political leader? We must be able to differentiate a traditional leader and a political leader.
As if the two don't interact.
It cannot be the same.
Yeah? But they don't interact. Is that what you're suggesting?
You can put it in your own way, but I'm coming to what you have said. Political leaders. A traditional leader is completely different to a political leader. They are not the same. But let me also say, you may be informed or aware that the minister, in fact the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Mzwandile Masina, has a very significant program. A program to empower our African brothers and sisters. And that is black industrialization. They are looking for black industrials.
With all due respect, my brother, how long has this
100? Well, the program just started. We can't achieve all this in quite less than 20 years.
Yeah, but this is 21 years.
There's nothing of that magnitude we can achieve.
We have a few
in 20 years.
We have a few texts that.
But I want you to agree with me, or you can disagree in another way. But be honestly, and be fair.
Right.
And look at where we come from as a nation. We must also give credit to what the ANC have done so far. And we can't now neglect the creation that has been there. the vast majority of South African people cannot be labeled or painted with a small number of people who are misbehaving and criminals that needs to be brought to a book. We can't do that.
Okay, right.
But we must also be in position to be critical where it's necessary.
But nor can
Brother Leader, sorry, we need to. There are a number of texts that we need to get through. Tendai Moore, brothers and sisters, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan and Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyfreeway.com.
Can I just make one short point, one small point,
Okay.
which is my brother. Nor can
Yes, gentlemen.
nor can we isolate that small group of people from the historical, economic, and political reality of South Africa. We cannot just take them as a separate entity and see what is happening in isolation. It has to be seen in the context of the broader socio-political and economic historical realities. Tendai Moore.
Tendai Moore. Okay, brothers and sisters, we're going to be opening the lines very, very shortly. Log these numbers now: 07538 005634. 0798385295. Our text line is 07572222156. We're going to be interacting. If you want to interact with Brother Dala from the ANC, right? That's what I thought. A political he's a political commentator and former chair of the ANC London branch. Tendai Murray. Sister Kai, I know you got some text. We'll be back with you, Brother Dala.
This text says, "I'm sorry, but your guest has been of no help. He has a neocolonial mind. There is no objectivity in his presentation."
Let me add some. Let me get some balance to.
Sorry, I got a few texts to read. Let me just.
I was just going to balance up with another one here.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, sis.
This one says, "I will be in shock if you don't say it is the American that caused the violence." And the other text, "Burning All Illusion," says, "There is a certain type of bag in Nigeria known as Ghana Must Go bag. It was a type of bag used by 700,000 citizens of Ghana to leave Nigeria in 1983. Today is South Africans asking foreigners to leave their country and return to their impoverished lands. In 1983, it was Nigeria ordering citizens of Ghana and others to leave their country and return to their impoverished lands. History has a way of repeating itself." Burning All Illusion says, "Citizens of Ghana moved to Nigeria in their thousands for a better life, just like in South Africa now. Things became a bit difficult in Nigeria, and Nigerians began to blame the foreigners for the difficult life. With low oil prices, they accused people from Ghana of taking all their jobs. 2 decades earlier, life was better in Ghana, and the country ordered foreigners, especially Nigerians, to leave their country, only to end up in Nigeria and be asked to go also. History of a way of repeating itself. What more proof is needed that Africans do not see themselves as one, but identify themselves according to their ethnic groupings? I think some of us are disillusional in this one Africa ideology, or delusional in this one Africa ideology. It really doesn't exist in Africa. It's a fallacy. The same fallacy remains buried under the surface here in England. Unification must first start with truths. Despite the fact truth is painful, then healing, responsibility, and unification. Not fallacies and more fantasies and fantasy word talks." Text 271 says, "We should reclaim the name Azania." This text says, "Around here we say Tendai Moore. Please ask your guests why the white so-called settlers, more properly called invaders, have not been subject to this violence, even though they control more wealth that's impoverished black South Africans." Hold on. South Africa, please ask your guests why the white South Africans, that all the so-called foreigners, that's more impoverished South Africans than all the so-called foreigners put together. Somebody says, "Brother Bandaka should go to South Africa and form a party and become president and show us how it is done." Sister Magina says, What does the brother think of the current socio-economic situation of Africans in South Africa? Does he think that Europeans living in luxury in South Africa, while Africans in South Africa is normal and therefore should not be contested? That's it for Texas for me. You had some text.
I did actually. Right, somebody who said earlier on to stop interrupting him, let him take us through the event in his own way. But brothers and sisters, our subject matter this evening, just to remind you, is what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa.
And you can also text.
I have been trying to put that question to our brother. I don't think I've got a straight answer yet.
Okay, you can text his number, Sister Brothers.
Text in on 07572 222 156. Text in on 07572 222 156.
Tonight, my brothers and sisters, yes, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafriwi.com. Galaxy is the only de-brainwashing station. As I said, our subject matter is what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa. And we're blessed to have our brother Ala, who is a political commentator and former chair of the ANC London branch.
Just to let our listeners know that we are still trying to get Brother Buntu, who's based in South Africa. He's having some problems connecting with the Skype. He said the reception is very poor there at the moment. So we're still trying. So hopefully he'll be able to join us at some stage on the show. But if not, then we'll continue with Brother Sala and Brother Leader Bandaka. Tendamore.
Yes, Tendamore. Brother Sala, right. You were about to respond to some points that Brother Leader was making, but there is also the question of why Europeans or white people then, to make it very, very plain, don't seem to be embroiled in the anger and the frustration that our brothers and sisters from South Africa are expressing towards their own kith and kin from different parts of Mama Africa. This is something that we spoke about earlier on in terms of we got a perspective from Brother Leader. What is your view on that? I don't know if you want to address that straight away, or do you want to come back to that? But we would like that addressed.
Well, Tandamarai, you see, there is always a beginning of something.
Absolutely.
We start to say when all other humans, when they are carrying a South African passport, regardless of the color of their skin, and then be in position to racially discriminate them, tribally discriminate them, and that's where the problem starts from. Because if we can start to say, that is my African brother and African sister, surely we are going to be in a better position. But if we are going to say, that is a European, suddenly South African citizen, it may be something that makes others at that particular time feel comfortable. But we are neglecting that form of misguided information leads to other things when that European individual is not there. I say this purely because let's have a deep look on this, Tandamarai. We're in the township in South Africa. There is no European there, according to your question. Now, when there is no one of them, it leads exactly to what I'm saying. You see now your African brother from another country as a replacement of this person you are saying is European. That's why I'm saying let's take our eyes far away from this labeling and racial tribalism among other humans.
But can we really do that in a society that where race is such a prevalent issue, the issue of race? I mean, we've come out of an apartheid regime, but some would argue that apartheid is alive and well in South Africa right now. It simply has a black face to it, but apartheid in terms of policy, in terms of inequality, in terms of, I mean, Maracana a few years back, where hundreds of miners were just liquidated by the police force. It's very much a vestige of apartheid. So race is very much still, you know, Brother Leader spoke about the land distribution.
Yes.
There's a racial component to that.
There are two things I said to you earlier on. We must not miss their understanding or perhaps definition.
Okay.
You see, when somebody kill another person, and that person is not facing the full justice of South Africa, it's another. But when you are having a group of people who are able to racially discriminate or associate or label themselves or characterize themselves as a group of people like this and like that, I'm saying to you, we may be comfortable about this in certain areas. But because we do not have a political consciousness about this labeling, then when we meet our African brothers, because that European individual is not among us, because that person we are saying perhaps is so Cecil John Rose, is not with us in taverns in Soweto. When we eat papa, there is no European there.
Are you saying in the
so we then tend to attack one another. But if we are able to say, clear your eyes, bring back the spirit of Ubuntu, let's understand who we are, the pride of being Africa. Because this generation of myself be a new hope to Africa. We understand the dynamics of our past, but also we must acknowledge the selfless struggle of our great grandparents and parents and fathers. Are you trying to tell me now in 2015 the sacrifice of Oliver Tambo, 25 years in London and 30 years as a leader of the African National Congress, the 27 years of Nelson Mandela in prison, today we must just say, no, the European must go? We can't do that. Only because the same very people were materially, crucially and vital in the forefront on the liberation to make sure that South Africa obtained democracy. It was even the English people who started the march to say, release Nelson Mandela. That must be always in our back mind. I'm not saying to you, let's neglect the work and the selfless contribution for our African brothers. Look, man, we have in Tanzania, where we have camps for our own African leaders. They were kept in those countries, receiving warm food. We can't today not be able to go back and say, but what we are doing doesn't reflect the selfless contribution done by our African brothers. Neither do we respect the contribution by the Europeans. But we must be in position to correct when people are doing wrong things. And we must not shy away, regardless of how you are higher up within the hierarchy, to say, hey man, what you have said is wrong, and you must face justice for that. We must not fear to bring you to books. It's this fear of calling leaders who have said things and leaders who are not productive that makes us to not move forward.
So do you think it's simply it sounds like you're really suggesting that it's a question of criminality rather than looking at the bigger picture in terms of the inequality? Is that what you're saying? You're saying it's a straight up issue of criminality as opposed to...
I said earlier on, the issue is very critical, it's dynamic. It's very big. Criminality, of course, have an element on this, but we can't solve it by saying those people are criminals. No.
Okay.
Because remember, Tandamarai, before you steal something from somebody else, your stomach must be empty. And the empty stomach is very dangerous.
Right.
Because it has no boundaries as to who to kill or where to steal to.
Right.
And as empty stomach with no consciousness as to our national development revolution or democratical revolution, it's a very dangerous one.
Okay, Brother Salah. Sister Magina, who sent the text, said she needs to clarify. She says, does the brother think it's normal for our African brothers to live in abject poverty while Europeans live in luxury? Do you think it's normal? Should we just go along with it?
After 21 years.
You see, that question is perhaps a very good question. I like what she's asking, but I also want her to assist me because she has an answer there. And that answer, I believe, is what together and resolving this, it's not normal. It's abnormal. It needs us as Africans, not to say together let's stand up, but let's come with programs that are going to equip our African brothers by creating jobs, by making sure that we don't just send charities of European people to feed our people. Because charities provide food for today, they have no skill for tomorrow. We must be able to provide education and skill our people so that they can stand for themselves.
Brother leader, the issue is jobs, creating jobs for our people. That is one of the things that Brother Lala is but after 21 years, isn't that the responsibility of the government?
Well, Tendai Moari, as Brother Lala knows, the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters, led by Brother Julius Malema and Brother Ndlozi and others who are involved, very erudite, strong activists. So these are for the caller who said Brother Bandaka might want to travel to South Africa and become the president so he can show them what to do. Just to show that I'm not just speaking from the top of my head, that there are Africans in South Africa who, on the ground who have made these analyses that I am speaking to. I am an African, and therefore I am concerned with what happens in the African world. I read and study the works of other African activists who are trying to make a positive change. And the analysis that we're getting from the EFF is that the ANC government, your party, my beloved brother, has let the African people of Azania, South Africa, down simply because they had forgotten the ANC. And in fact, as you know, these young, largely young people who broke away from the African National Congress, they were part of the African National Congress Youth League. And they broke away from the African National Congress Youth League because, in their analysis, the ANC has sold out the people of South Africa. They believe that the ANC has forgotten what the people of South Africa, the indigenous people, the African people of South Africa, were fighting for. Amandla, Awetu was the cry. Can you explain to the people what that means? Power to the people, right?
Power, yes, indeed.
Power to the people. Okay? Maibuye, Africa. What does that mean?
Africa must come back to us.
Africa must come back to us. Yes?
Indeed.
Maibuye, Africa. Let it return. Africa, let it return to us. Israel to Africa.
Yes.
What does that mean, my brother?
Israel, this is our land. It's Africa.
The land of Africa is ours. It belongs to us. We want our land back. That is what the people of Azania, South Africa, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s were fighting for. And the ANC government moved away from that. The emphasis became the vote, this nebulous thing called the vote, this nebulous thing called democracy. And then this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, when the people were crying out for justice, when the apartheid system was dismantled, the people wanted justice. They wanted these these vicious genocidal maniacs of the white regime of South Africa to be brought to justice. Nelson Mandela presided over the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the purpose of that was to give amnesty to white murderers, white mass murderers. At the same time, African freedom fighters who were imprisoned are still today languishing in prison. Right or wrong?
Well, you will have to allow me to respond fully.
Kenny Motsamai is still in prison, accused of killing some white man. That was a freedom fighter, member of the Pan-African Congress of Azania. There was a spate of killings of members of the Pan-African Congress of Azania at the same time that Nelson Mandela was being released and the apartheid system was being dismantled. And the EFF is saying that the ANC has moved away, has forgotten its commitment to the people, and has used its power to protect white monopoly capital rather than to seriously engage in a redistribution of wealth, in a redistribution of control of the economy, the nationalization of certain industries which would suit an economy in South Africa that is based upon the building of an infrastructure that would address the needs of the ordinary people of South Africa, the overwhelming majority of Africans in South Africa. The ANC has failed, is the view, as you know, my brother, not only of the EFF, but those same young people who are now in South Africa demonstrating on university and college campuses the way they demonstrated in the 1970s and were gunned down. Those young people are saying nothing has changed in South Africa. Whites are still in control. They control all the institutions, the economic institutions, the land. They are 8% is the official figure. They are 8% of the population. Some sources say they are 5% of the population. But whether 5% or 8%, they are a minority. But they control over 80% of the land, over 95% of the economy. They control the overwhelming the industries. Tendai Mwari.
Just land with your point, my brother. We got some announcements that we have to do.
Tendai Mwari. And 21 years on, there has not been a serious commitment to building infrastructure that will seriously tackle the poverty and the destitution of the ordinary Africans in South Africa. This is the fundamental issue. And as you say quite rightly, my brother, which I alluded to even before you said it, once a person is hungry, then that person is vulnerable to manipulation, to wealthier, more powerful individuals who will use that person to do their bidding in order that that person may get a piece of bread to eat. And this is what we're seeing now, that they can whip up emotions and turn Africans against Africans, whilst the wealth and the opulence and the power base of Europeans are protected in Azania, South Africa, and that is a crime.
Okay, we will let Brother Ala respond just shortly. Tenamare.
24-hour radio. It's a fact of life. 24-hour radio.
102.5. African Station.
The lines are going to be open now. And brothers and sisters, I know you've been phoning constantly, even though I'll be telling you text because we're not opening the lines. The lines are open now. But let me get through some of these texts. This text says, sorry, the guest has danced around a lot of questions, but I respect his input and the fact that he arrived and allowed a forum for debate regarding the internal suffering our family are having. Seems he doesn't want to commit to the vantage point that the real foreigners are non-Africans and that they are and they are the problem. I believe more coverage would be promoted if it was Africans burning up white people. Next, that was by 722. 271. The guest is responding like a typical politician, not really giving any specific answers. Please allow Brother Leader Bandaka to speak more. And then we have 722. Thanks for the link on Black Truth Seekers. Brother Martin says 45 million black South African. They all face apartheid, but all of them are not killing their African brother. Brother Bandaka should explain it. 271. They are not settlers. They are invaders and Boers. Let's call a spade a spade. Brother Martin says Julius Malema will never become president of South Africa. No way, he's a thug. Gabriel.
Brother Martin.
Yeah, Brother Martin said that.
Okay.
Brother Gabriel Egziberna says Africa, no unity. Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, mass killing of Ethiopians in Libya, the throwing of the raft of Ghanaian and Nigerians because they were Christians, criminal Zuma, Zulu King, xenophobia. That's the Africa we want to go home to, ? The guest not answering the questions. Politician all the same. Desare Vudum. Bernal all illusion. The problem is very dynamic. Your guest is right, but a big but. The Afrikaners and his European cousins, and let's not forget their Zionist masters in Israel, are still pulling the strings and control the most valuable resources and the arable land. This is the obvious elephant in the room. Zuma is being propped up by those who really control the wealth. Only a Mugabe takeover of the land will work in South Africa. A bloody armed struggle. Mercedes says, getting to guests. Nice. Greetings to guests. Nice show. Show mad big up brother Bob. And then 084 said, when is the issue of land going to be addressed? No land, no power. That's brother Tahaka. And 707 says, we are burying our heads in the sand as we just follow up some strokes of Europeans. Still, we move on stubbornly, but it might be time to stop talk as we as blacks know that by the action of a few blacks, Bandaka can't even manage his little party. That's from Brother Martin. Greetings to our guests. Oh, yeah, we got that one. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Brother Martin has a lot to say. I think he should.
Just to say to Brother Martin, it's not Brother Bandaka's little party. It's our parliament. And since our brother has, so much criticism and condemnation, it means that you must have some good ideas as to what can be done to build this parliament. So get involved. I'm sure if you get involved, you'll have some erudite ideas that will help us to move rapidly towards building our National African People's Parliament. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Well, Brother Martin and others can call in now on 07538 005634, 07983 852 952, or, well, the texts are coming in thick and fast, 07572 222 That's the text line. We have a caller on the line. Tendai Mwari caller, you're live on Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM. What's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa, my brother or sister?
Brother Kunga.
Brother Kunga, Tendai Mwari. Yes, help us, brother. What's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa?
I mean, let me be quick because obviously the show, I believe, ends very soon. Certainly leadership, obviously history, which Brother Leader has obviously mentioned. The history is obviously long and very, very sad. But now we're in a process of leadership and governance. And so there's no doubt that, the bad leadership is certainly to blame for that. Others will look towards the media. But as you know, as you're well aware, as you're even on the radio, we also have our own media. So you have to be mindful when we just carte blanche say the media is also to blame. It plays a part, but certainly as we've seen, and possibly not even heard, leadership is a fact. And I want to ask your guest actually, if he's proud of the fact that President Zuma is the highest paid politician in the world. and if he feels that he's done well to achieve that mantle. And also the second question I have, he would also probably be aware of Lonmin, formerly called London Rhodesia Mining Company, and also many of the board members there. Some of them were even former activists, and with an average income of 700 million, in their wealth basket. So I just wondered if you feel that good governance. I wouldn't embarrass him by asking him how much salary he earns from South Africa. I wouldn't even venture to be so rude. But I'm a little bit, and I'll land on this, I'm a little bit concerned as regards the lack of solution, the lack of condolences offered to those families, and certainly the African families that lost their lives so heinously, that I've heard. And I've certainly not heard your speaker mention too much of that as regards a solution moving forward. So I would urge the Galaxy family to really look at who they're having to articulate issues and solutions for South Africa moving forward. We, as you know, the politicians right now in the UK are really trying to mind sway us, and I think we have a guest in the studio that's potentially also doing that. So is he proud of President Zuma's salary? Does he think he's earning it? And also, as you mentioned, regards the mining situation, is he happy that some members who were former activists are now sitting on the board of Lonmin and are worth in excess of $700 million?
Thank you very much, my brother. Right.
We do have another guest.
Another caller?
Another caller, sorry.
Right.
Who's waiting.
Okay.
And also, I'd just like to read out this text. The texts are coming fast. I'm trying to get through them. It says the xenophobic behavior is a big sign that we Africans are cowards, and that's from 641. It's nice if the texters, please give us some names. We'd like to know who we're talking to.
Okay. Tenamori, right, brother Lala. Highly paid the most highly paid president in the world. Are you proud of him, and is he earning his keep? Okay, we do have another caller, but if you can try and quickly address it. I know there's a number of things you wanted to address. Okay, we're going to take the caller. Okay, sorry, my brother. Right, we're going to take the caller. Tenamori caller, you're live on Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Tenamori.
Tenamori, it's Brother Shakara calling. Yeah.
Just a second, Brother Shakara. We're just gonna link you up so we can all hear you.
Is your phone low?
No, not at all. My phone's very high.
Okay. Right, we'll get you linked shortly, my brother. Tenamori, while we're trying to link Shakara, Sister Kai.
Let's trying to link Shakara. We have, I think this is Brother Ade. Ade, go ahead, Brother Ade.
Tenamori, Brother Ade. Okay, we haven't got Brother Ade yet. While we're getting that sorted, Brother Lala, let's try and get a response regarding Jacob Zuma first of all. And Tenamori.
I think if I take you to say, look, our topic here today, we're talking about what is the root cause of this xenophobic attack. We must also look at the contribution that the people are facing this attack in terms of tax. Not taking you very far, just that by the king himself, the fellow receives almost 60 million a year from...
Which fellow are you talking about?
Sorry? The king himself, King Zwelithini.
All right.
The one who's actually...
the Zulu king.
Yes,
right.
The one who's actually
he's on
quoted on it. Yes.
Yeah. Right, so he's on 60 million a year.
So I want to stick there to say he receives 60 million
a
year.
What about Jacob Zuma?
From where?
From the taxpayers.
From the taxpayers.
What about Jacob Zuma?
That alone...
that's regulated by the government.
Of course,
so there is a link between.
Let me finish the Tandamara. That alone, it shows, and it of course gives me a deepest deep of troubling, because if I can put bread to your table and you and then on the other side be able to be restless with the words that you use towards the people who feeds you, who buttered your bread and make you to have something to eat every day, I'm having a problem with this.
Absolutely.
And that covers everything else we have answered.
Right.
I have a problem with
So there is a connection then.
We still haven't had the actual response in relation to Jacob Zuma, though, your president, who is the highest paid, according to our caller, the highest paid president. Is he earning his keep? Can you confirm what his salary is?
Look, we have prime ministers, ministers who are receiving a certain amount of salary.
Okay.
But what we don't surely know, how much is President Zuma's salary?
You don't know.
Because firstly, we said here, the media at times can trade stories to make us fight one another. So I think with this one of the president's salary, we might as well send to his presidency
Is it
and
safe
then
to
give us...
assume that if King Zwelithini, if he's getting 60 million a year, that President Zuma will be getting significantly more than that?
I won't ask. The question I will ask is that if the king can define for me what is he doing with this 60 million and how does he receive that amount of money and still behave the way he does?
Okay. All right.
We're going to say he's a mouthpiece of President Zuma. Is that a fair assumption?
Tanamarai. The fellow you're talking about is not a spokesperson for the president.
Okay.
He's not a spokesperson for the president.
He just gets 60 million a year from the president.
We need to move to
from
the government.
We've got two callers waiting.
Okay.
I'm going to ask our callers if they can be very, very tight because the queue is very long. So, Shakara, go ahead, please.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Just about. Go ahead.
So, right. I just want to say, I feel like we've had an opportunity to basically get some clarity on what on earth is going on in South Africa right about now. And I'm not sure if we've really afforded ourselves the opportunity and done the best that we can with that. I think there's a whole heap of dynamics taking place at the moment with regards to students protesting, trying to take down monuments as a part of a strategy to decolonize African history in South Africa and address issues pertaining to the figures that such as Cecil Rhodes, who are responsible for raping African land, and that is the beginning, the genesis here of the economic inequality that we're seeing today in South Africa that's taking place right about now. And we've seen a Western media that has chosen to focus on this particular issue, over that particular issue, But the two issues are very, very much related. So I really want to focus on Wagwan right now in South Africa, and get some clarity on that, because there's a lot of confusion, and people listening, I'm sure, are not any more clearer as to what on earth is going on, So what is happening with these students? What is it? What is their campaign that they're fighting against? I even heard some of the students were trying to take down a statue of Nelson Mandela in relation to his collusion with the neocolonial government and basically forwarding the legacy of people like Cecil Rhodes because he failed to address the economic inequalities. We see a situation whereby not just in the economic arena, but white South Africans apparently through another political party called the Democratic Alliance are apparently getting more and more power on the political scene and in government in South Africa as well. So I want to know what is happening with these issues on the ground right about now in South Africa.
Okay.
What is happening in South Africa, whereby Africans who are coming from other nations, other nations are not able to live in South Africa and feel safe, whilst Europeans are. These are the questions that need to be that need to be answered by the brother in the studio with regards to the situation on the ground.
Thank you, Brother Shakara.
Tatenda.
All right.
Right, just to say that some of those issues were addressed in terms of the students, certainly were put to our brother. Whether they've been addressed by him or not, that's another issue.
We're going to take our next caller.
Okay,
we have a number
sister.
of callers. Can we have Brother Kwame on the line? You want to put a question to Brother Kwame?
Okay, Tenamara, Brother Kwame. What's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa, my brother, for you?
Yeah, basically, it's not. I wouldn't call it xenophobic. I call it Afrophobic, because we're not attacking other people apart from our own. And I think that, you know, your contributor in the studio is basically he's trying to rationalize failure by the ANC. I would implore him, I would implore all your listeners to watch a YouTube video by John Pilger called Why Apartheid Did Not Die. But when you watch that video on YouTube by John Pilger, who is a respected Rome de Sioux, respected white European journalist, you would understand why there is, or why what's happening in South Africa happened. And to answer Baba Shakira's question, why this happening is that, and the ANC man is quite aware of it because I've been to South Africa 5 times. The ANC sold out because there was mention that Mandela was bought. Yes, Mandela was bought to power by the Afrikaner Brotherhood. The Afrikaner Brotherhood were the ones who set Mandela free in 1990. Prior to that, Mr. Mandela had secret meetings with the Afrikaner Brotherhood in 1988 and 1989 to safeguard white business and interests, which are largely controlled by an elite of the Dutch, French, Afrikaners, so-called, and the white British people. And when they came to power, they promised to build 1 million new houses. Right? This was Mandela's program to offer better healthcare, to provide better education, to get rid of the Bantu education that received under the apartheid rule, and to build 1 million houses and to provide jobs. But because the ANC followed a Bretton Woods economic program, this is why the portrait of Emmanuel, a white man, or so-called coloured, as the finance minister during the Mandela years. They deliberately followed a IMF-sanctioned policy that would safeguard white corporate interests at the expense of the majority of the blacks or the Africans living there. This is why, of the 1 million houses that Nelson Mandela said he would build, he only built less than 200,000 houses. Right? I've been to Alexandria. I've been to, you know, and even in Johannesburg, the comparison between Stanton in Johannesburg, which is where whites live, right, and so downtown Johannesburg, which where most of the blacks live, right, is very, very, the disparity is very, very real. And when you and that is replicated all over South Africa, from Durban to Cape Town to Port Elizabeth to areas in KwaZulu-Natal to Transvaal to Pretoria. That racial inequality between blacks and whites is very, very apparent, which is why, you know, that is happening. The ANC, the guessing you have to admit, the ANC has failed the masses of African people. And this is why elements of the ANC broke away, Julius Malema included, to form the EFF, which has now has a handful of seats in Parliament, and will make, you know, a thing on that. But again, another one of the finally, just briefly, quickly.
Yes, please.
The reason why this is happening is because of the failure of political leadership in Africa, not just in South Africa, but political leadership across Africa. Post 1960s, when we lost Nkrumah, Lumumba, etc., to form the African Unity Program. If the African Unity Program of Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Julius Nyerere, and Mokaba and co. had been formulated as what was the idea to foster African unity amongst this, we wouldn't relate to one another as a foreigner. How the hell am I the Ghanaian? How can I be a foreigner on African soil? This is what your guest is, you have to understand. How am I a foreigner on African soil? And there are Ghanaians and Nigerians who have died in South Africa. And from information I have on the ground, the South Africa embassy in Ghana is under siege. And now Ghanaians are telling our government to actually boycott South African products and services because South Africa has a big presence in Ghana. You know, companies like MTN, ShopRite, Game, etc. If this virus does not stop, we will boycott very South African goods just like we did during the apartheid era.
Okay, my brother.
Your contributor needs to understand this. This is not plaything. This is serious, serious business because the ANC has failed to deliver. Tenamari.
Tenamari. Give thanks, Brother Kwame. Tenamari, my sister.
Lock in the power station.
Galaxy Radio 102.5. African Station.
Call in now on 07983 852 952 or 07538 005 634. Call in now on 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634.
Tonight, my brothers and sisters, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com. We have an extension, brothers and sisters, until 10:30, so we're blessed to further explore the issue. What's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa? Now, Brother Ala, you've got there are a number of questions that you need to respond to, the essence of which is the frustration that people are feeling in terms of you not actually answering the questions that are being levied at you currently. Tenamura.
Okay, before Brother Saad and Brother Leader come back on, just these texts says, is Barack Obama's fault for the killings in South Africa? I think that's from Brother Martin. That's this 339 says, your guest has just proved my point. He is an integrationist and of a colonial mind. Tendamore.
Brother. Right.
We have Brother Ade, who's been trying earnestly to get through a number of times.
Okay.
I didn't lose him this time. So, Brother Ade, go ahead. You don't. I'm going to ask our callers, please be tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Welcome to Africa Speaks, Brother Ade.
Omowale.
Yes, my brother. Give thanks and praises.
Shalafiani.
Shalafiani. Give thanks, my brother. Our subject matter this evening: what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa for you?
Well, yeah. Well, obviously, when you're being suppressed by by invaders, so-called invaders, I suppose the next in you takes it down people who looks like you, rather than the common enemy who are the purveyors of your problems.
Absolutely.
And I would just want to add another quick thing to you as regarding what Kwame said. The Ghanaian guy we just found. Brother Omowale, if you look in the 80s, Nigeria was a very rich country.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you look in 1979, they nationalized the BT due to the work that they were doing in South Africa, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, Mrs. Thatcher, when she came to Nigeria in 1983, there was the leader called Tunde Diagbo. He actually told her, because of her stand, as you know, she was a firm supporter of apartheid.
That's right.
And Tunde Diagbo, who's no longer with us, who passed away a few years ago, told her where the hell to go and jump.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing applied to Ronald Reagan. They were very wary of him. He was very, 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 very good. You see, South Africa should not forget that many people have contributed for them, you know. So they should not be biting the hand that's helped them. Libya itself, Libya contribute greatly. Gaddafi, whether, militarily or financially, you know.
Okay.
So basically that's just, sorry?
Give thanks, Brother Ade, as usual. Very vibrant contributions from yourself, my brother.
Thank you.
Give thanks. Tendai Muradi. Our subject matter this evening, brothers and sisters, what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa? Our special guest this evening, Brother Leader Bandaka, Brother Othani Ala. My brother, as I said, a number of questions are being leveled at you. The essence of which is you're not answering the questions, and are you here, basically as a neocolonialist, as our last texter. Can you help us out, please, my brother?
Well, I must first start by congratulating our last caller, Comrade Adi. I think he articulated a few things there correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And what Adi said, we must not by any means start to think that South Africans are not grateful by the contribution of other African countries in our liberation to become a better country as we are today. Let's not mistake this by or with any other thing. But Tandamara, I heard quite a lot of questions here, but I want to answer them in three different forms. Let me start from 1994, and then I'm coming back to the issue of statues, and then to the issues of transformation in terms of economical transformation in South Africa. So that I think after that you'll have a better understanding as to why South Africa is where it is today and what is the vision to move forward. Tandamarai, many people, as much as we may not want to hear this, we must also understood that when the late President Nelson Mandela whom became the first democratic black president elected in 1994. They went through a deep negotiation with the National Party and all other political parties in South Africa to create what we call a constitution. And of course, it goes back to your question as to what happened to reconciliation, what happened to the Truth and Commission. Those people were brutally murdered, our African brothers. I hear you. I hear you. And I'm hearing you deeply. Because the wounds of those people who have done this damage to our people are still bleeding. Some of us, we don't even know where our grandparents were buried. This is not an easy thing. Some may label me today and say I have a colonial understanding where I'm sitting here. It's not for me to say you're absolutely wrong. I won't say that. No. But let me just tell you one thing. When our late former president, Nelson Mandela, addressed us as young people, remember I'm 32, when he said, we must replace our weapons with education, a key that will open every gate that we want to open as a nation. And he asked us to be people who accept what have happened. But we must be also in position to reclaim our history so that we can know our history. And in those processes, things were not easy for our parents and their uncles and everybody else. They were saying, but what this fellow is talking about, because their direction was what my fellow comrade here wanted to talk about earlier on. But Tanamara, we were requested, not only as South Africa, as SADC, as well as Africans. The late president asked us for reconciliation. And through discussions and negotiations, South Africans were involved. We sit down, we said, we forgive you. Nobody pushed us to forgive anybody else. It was consciousness. It was individual consciousness and accepting that I forgive you, but as long as you tell me what happened. Of course, we never heard everything else. Others never came up with truth. Some are still in prison. But I'm saying to you, the reason I'm saying this to you, I want you to understand, through that pain, we adopted what we call the best constitution in the world. And under constitution, each and every citizen is protected. Of course, there are certain things you will want to argue. But it's 20 years now after democracy. What have you done? But you will also understand that constitution, you have to obey by constitution, you respect the rule of law, and those who own product in terms of land must also be approached in the manner that they are willing to engage in this. We can't just grab the land. We can't do that. We have a constitution. We're a democratic country. Because you are giving me small time, let me go quicker to the one of statues. You see, Tanamara, I remember vividly, I was here in London, when the late president in 2007, on the 29th of August here, in Parliament Square, at that time the mayor of London was Kevin Livingstone. We unveiled a statue of our late president Nelson Mandela there. I was one of the youngest person who was campaigning for the statue to be in Trafalgar Square. But we face a lot of critiques. Some say, but the fellow is still alive. This is against the British history to award somebody a statue while he's still alive. They say it won't be in Trafalgar Square. We managed to secure peace in Parliament Square through the leadership of Ken Livingstone. But let me just tell you what is happening, why I'm bringing this to you. The fact that Nelson Mandela, when he was in London, with the former late president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo, whom I've indicated later on, he spent 30 years here in London, 25 years as a leader of the ANC. The greatest leader that the ANC perhaps have had in years. He was joking with Nelson Mandela going to Parliament, the British Parliament. They were joking when they see a former Prime Minister, Jan Smith. They saw a statue of the fellow there in Parliament Square. Mandela and Oliver, they didn't say that guy must fall because he brutally killed many people in South Africa. No. But they wished, their vision, their dream was supernatural. Above any other thing, they wanted themselves to be part and parcel of that history. And what do we have today? We have a statue of Nelson Mandela sitting beautifully in Parliament Square. They didn't say Jan Smith must go down. You cannot correct wrong by wrong. You can only build a beautiful, unique history that makes you and I to claim where we belong when we strive and have leaders who seek to be there.
So what you're saying is the young people in Cape Town University, what they were doing in terms of wanting the statue
Well, they took it
of Rhodes pulled down and eventually pulling it down. You're saying that was wrong?
I'm saying,
just for clarity.
Yeah, I'm taking you back to what I've said. That Tandamarai, this may sound as something very good. And it may sound...
Well, what do you think?
But I'm saying to you, when the statue is not there, they are going to the African brother to remove. You don't have many statues. And these statues, by the way, they are just statues. Why we are not striving to have our great leaders? We don't have a statue in South Africa, a bigger statue of Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu. We don't have a statue of great African leaders in South Africa. Why are we not striving to have these statues than removing statues of...
But surely you do know...
Okay, it seems we got a call.
Brother Ala, surely you do know that the students who are demonstrating in colleges and campuses in Azania, South Africa right now are demanding those things, that there should be monuments of African freedom fighters. What they're saying is that they want these symbols of white supremacy. They want these symbols of white oppression to be removed from place of what we call it, pride of place in South Africa. They want them removed. They want them demolished because they are an insult to the integrity of the African African
you see,
people.
Tandamarai, that question I think is misplaced because that university alone.
What question is misplaced?
The one of statues, the student, what they demand.
Yeah.
Because that
and we're
university...
talking about more than one university.
Yes. Let me just go to the Western Cape one so that we are clear here.
We'll be with you in a moment, caller.
Those students, I'm a part and parcel and a product of students, unions, myself, and student movements. You can't be in a university where 99% of the lectures are white and then start to look for objects that are outside that are distracting you. The lectures themselves are distracting you.
Yeah, but that's what
the change must start within the lectures.
So
that the lectures.
Whose job is it to start that?
Brother Kala, one moment.
Yeah.
You should know that these are amongst the issues that these young people are raising. They are saying that they want a transformation. No transformation has taken place with regards to the citadels of learning across South Africa. They want to see.
Look, Tandamarai.
Remember, the whites are 5 to 8%, at best 8% of the population, and they're saying that's it. The lecturers are almost totally white. They want some Africans to lecture them. They want a change. They want a transformation in the curriculum. All of these are issues that they're raising. They want the words and the works and the legacy of Steve Biko. One moment, Steve Biko to be taught in their universities and colleges. They want Mangalisa Sebukwe. They want Franz Fanon.
That history, Tandamarai, you will agree with me.
All right,
let's bring the caller in.
This is what they're calling for. You should know that, my brother.
I'll respond that because this topic alone is very complex and we must deal with it very.
Okay, all right.
Let's bring the caller in, please. Tandamarai caller. Sorry to keep you. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Tenema caller?
My sister, go ahead.
I can hear her. All right.
My sister?
Okay, Tenema, the subject matter, what's behind the xenophobic violence in South Africa?
Yes, you see, that question, Tandamarai,
Tenema, go on.
it goes back exactly to what I'm saying. Because we are asking what's behind this. I'm saying to you, when the statue falls, who else? We go to our African brothers.
Well,
I'm saying
the students themselves are saying this is just the beginning. That's what they're saying.
Any revolutionary movement, Tandamarai, without guidance, it has a potential to be looking like a missile with no master to direct it where to shoot.
Well, from my understanding,
because
these students are well organized, and they're saying that the statue is, they're clear that the statue is just symbolic. What they want is an end to white supremacy. They want an end to this Eurocentric curriculum
Tandamarai,
that they are being subjected to.
We must also agree here. There is a fellow here, I admire this fellow and I fully respect him. Jack Bueller, who Nubia. He does Plakwa, he does statues.
Yes, our beloved brother.
That fellow, I don't think there's anybody who have ever congratulated him to say the work that we are doing for African people is wonderful in the United Kingdom.
Well,
he doesn't cry to say
this movement has on many occasions.
Yeah, he doesn't cry to say a statue of a white person must go down because distract him. But he says, let's put our people there so that we can have a history.
No.
We can't demolish a history because we want a certain history. That's what leads to this xenophobic attack. Because that, when the statue is not there, they end up saying, let's remove that African there so that I stand there and they take that job.
Respect, my brother. That's an erroneous parallel that you're drawing there. This is South Africa.
Yes.
This is the country of the African man and the African woman. Jack Bueller is an African in Britain, a European country that has European monuments all over the place. In South Africa, it is the opposite. It's European monuments that represents white supremacists who are responsible for the bloodbath that we have seen for hundreds of years in Africa.
So now your suggestion is that we must have 2 days to demolish all this monument of Europeans in South Africa?
I'm not saying, I am supporting the action that the students are engaged in Azania, South Africa. By tearing down these monuments, by defacing these statues, they are attacking a symbol of white supremacy that they feel should no longer be glorified in South Africa.
Did you hear
Let me bring the caller in. Tendamara caller, you're live on Africa's Brother Leader,
the government is trying to silence. Some people believe, one moment, let me just say the sentence.
Yeah.
Some people believe this is what the government is trying to silence. Tendamari.
No, this is
Brother Tony, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tony. Yeah, I would like to suggest to your guest in the studio that I think it was 1984 they made a film, a rugby film, with the South African playing rugby, and according to the white people, Nelson Mandela wears a South African rugby shirt, right? According to them, right? They said that, by him wearing that South African rugby shirt, right? Because remember, in South Africa, in those days, it's only whites that plays rugby, right? And blacks only plays soccer, right? Football, right? They said, right? By Nelson Mandela wearing that white South African rugby shirt, right? Told the white people, right? Indirectly or directly that everything remains the same, right? He endorsed, what was still there, okay? Right? And the only reason why they have got a picture, a statue of Nelson Mandela in Parliament Square is because, the white people find Nelson Mandela not to be of the spirit of Malcolm X, who tell the people themselves that the only thing that white people respect is power, right? Iron sharpen iron, okay? Right? The only thing white people is gonna respect, right, is power, right? The minute we start taking one of them out, and yeah, that's the only time that things will be resolved, right?
Okay, my brother.
The talking and all this ain't gonna get
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
all right.
All right, bless
Thanks
you, love,
very much,
Tony.
my brother. Tendai Murray, that's brother Tony.
Tendai Mori.
You see,
Tendai Mori, we have a couple of texts just before you come back, my brother Sal and brother Leader. This is from Martin. Before Europeans went to Africa, Africans were killing each other. This is from Kwame. Your guest is a house Negro. Burning all illusion. The whites just grabbed the land and
I think that's necessary, though. You know, I mean, our brother has been so respectful. He's got his point of view, and we may not agree with his point of view, but I don't think we need to be, you know, casting those kind of slurs and aspersions. I just don't accept that. Tendai Mari. The house Negro thing, I think is taking it a little bit too far.
Tendai Mari.
Tendai Mari.
Burning all illusion. The whites just grabbed the land, and your guest is talking about constitution. I don't think he gets it. The majority of blacks are disenfranchised. They are sick and tired of their low status, and they're in their own land. They see everybody else benefiting except them. Forgive this brother. He is being touched by white extremism. He's obviously out of touch and sympathizes with his colonial master. He's a perfect example of an African mindset. We have caller. Oops, what's happened to them? All right. What's your name?
Bob.
Go ahead, brother Bob.
Brother Bob's gonna have to be our last call.
Brother Bob, go ahead. You're live.
I'm going to be very quick here.
Yeah.
Okay, my brother. Go 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a guest and Brother Leader Mandaka. My question, which I believe is very personal. The question is, can South Africa and Africa as a whole survive without European people?
Okay. Thank you, brother Bob. Bless.
Just to remind listeners that we did have another guest, Baba Buntu, from South Africa, a Pan-Africanist who would have been engaging with us this evening to maybe give another side of the story. So unfortunately, due to, as Sister Kai mentioned earlier on, he was on the move, and I think it's very important that we re-engage.
There was technical transmission problems.
Transmission issues with the Skype, but the fact is, I think we do need to get more information, maybe from a Pan-African perspective, on this particular another analysis. Well, our brother is giving an analysis. Indeed. Tenamari.
Right. We're coming to the end of the show now, brothers and sisters and callers. I do apologize if I know some of you tried earlier and wanted to get through and didn't get through and tried again. But we're going to have to take some closing comments from our guests this evening, and then got a few questions to answer as well. So please go ahead, Brother Sala.
Tandamorai. I think you had the last two callers, Tony and Bobby. You see, Tandamorai, if I go back to what Andy said, he outlined it all. But Tony seems to be a little bit...
Sorry, I'm going to take this call because she's been constantly trying to get through. And for some reason, by the time we get to her, she's out. My sister, I'm going to ask you, just give your name, but you got about a minute. Please go ahead. I do apologize.
What's the name?
My name is Pumzile. I'm from South Africa. But I just wanted to find out from Baba Kala. I wanted to find out from him that can he really answer the question clearly, because we can really see that those the students in South Africa who are doing what they're doing it because they want answers. They're frustrated. And can you please be honest with the nation and just say it the way it is, so no one will get frustrated.
My sister, what's your name, my sister?
Phumzile.
Punzile. Sister Punzile, can you give us, in as briefly as possible, can you give us your understanding of the uprisings, the demonstrations that's taking place by students in South Africa in colleges and universities?
You there, my sister?
What's your understanding of it, sis?
Hello?
Yeah, what is your understanding?
Yes. What I want to say to you right now, it's not about my understanding, but it's from what I'm seeing. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are very frustrated, and we're taking our frustrations out on the wrong idea. And because of our politicians like ANC, I'm sorry, but I feel like if we can be straight and just be real with us, there wouldn't be any of these distractions which are happening. That's how I will put it. I would love to tell you everything, but I just want to put it in that bit.
Has the ANC let us down, my sister? Have they let down the Africans of South Africa?
They have. Of course they have. Of course they have. Of course they have. That's why people are angry. And South African people are they're very good people.
Absolutely.
But it's the frustration from the government not doing anything and wanting to put blame on this, blame on that, and people are frustrated there in the small grounds. They're frustrated, and they're gonna do worse if the government still want to ignore the issue.
And is racism still rife in South Africa, or is the Rainbow Coalition working nicely for us in South Africa?
Angry as well. I am angry. I will speak for myself. I am very angry about the situation because it's not supposed to be happening.
Okay. All right. Well, we give thanks for your contributions, my sister, Tendai Mwari. Right.
I'm sorry, Baba Kala, if I spoke wrong.
No.
Sister,
you are within your right, Sis Pumzil. And I think I must add to your words to say, you know,
Tendai Mwari,
she came on a different angle. You know, this is the angle I'm saying to you, that the issues are very complex. If you give a time for me to explain the number of things that leads to
but
what
she's asking you to be clear with the people,
but,
to be honest and open with the people. That's what she's asking you to do.
What I was referring to, Tandamara, is that when the statue falls down, what happens when the statue falls down?
No, but we have already dealt with that, brother.
Yes, but I'm saying to you, when the statue falls down, you are going to attack another African brother.
No, not at all, because the students are not attacking each other. And I want to make it clear. I don't want people to leave the show thinking that South Africans are attacking Africans from other nations all over South Africa, because that is not the case.
Sure.
No, it's not.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
And I think it has already been alluded to in this program, and I want to emphasize.
Sure.
My understanding is that the overwhelming majority of Africans in South Africa are grateful to Africans from all over Africa for the contributions that were made to dismantling apartheid. Much of the movements against apartheid, even from South Africans, were organized outside of South Africa to make an impact on South Africa itself. And South Africans are aware of that. And they're grateful for that. Yeah? So we know that what is going on, these pockets of so-called xenophobic attacks on so-called foreigners, and the point has already been made. It's not foreigners per se, because they're not attacking Chinese. They're not attacking foreign Europeans. They're not attacking, Lebanese and other Arabs that are inside of South Africa. They're attacking other Africans. So it's a pathological, it's a social pathology that is clearly arise out of some kind of social engineering that is taking place at the highest level of politics in South Africa, that needs to be exposed. It needs to be exposed. This is not the spirit of the South African people.
Exactly.
I know that for a fact.
To come out in the open. It needs to come out in the open.
Absolutely.
To speak to the people and do not treat people like they are infants.
Okay.
To speak to the South African people, the government itself, because what is happening is the South African people who will suffer again.
Absolutely.
We don't want that anymore. So we need to fix this now. It has to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Right. My dear sister, thank you very much for your contribution. Absolutely. I can see why it was essential to have you on our program.
Thank you for the chance.
Thank you
very much for calling.
Pleasure. Let's get some closing comments from you, my brother. We're out of time, right out of time.
Tandamarai, there's quite a lot of things that leads to this xenophobic attack. But some of them, of course, we don't need to shy away to say there's a highest number of unemployment in South Africa. And I indicated to you that when a human have an empty stomach, you are more likely easily to be manipulated. And the empty stomach is a very dangerous stomach. Now, there is also an element that I want to raise to you, that our brothers and sisters who perhaps were brutally murdered in South Africa, the statistics are saying that 6 have passed away, more than 300 are injured. That is very high. And that is painful. What are we doing? What is the next thing? It's not about who have done what now. What are we doing? What is the program of action to make sure this thing doesn't happen? Because it affects us, as the recent caller have indicated, Phumzile. We live in foreign lands. We are not part and parcel of this. But the question is, what must be done? We must create programs where embassies in Africa are also involved. Because Tandamarai, we must not neglect the fact that the people who are murdered there, they are taxpayers. And the taxpayer is an engine to a government program. A taxpayer is an engine to feed schemes and make sure that the government operates. And if we can't protect the taxpayer, I don't know who else we are going to protect. That is regardless of what is the nationality of that person. And of course, I must extend this to say to you, South Africans at largely abroad, we are saying this cannot be accepted. We can't tolerate this. This coming Saturday on the 25th of April, here in Westminster Square, where there is a statue of Nelson Mandela, global South Africans and other African nations were gathering there at 11 o'clock on Saturday. This Saturday, we're going to have a peaceful march to the South African House, where we're going to hand in a petition and a memorandum. I'm calling to your callers to come.
What is it about?
It's a peaceful march to give the petition.
What is the petition?
The petition is saying, not in our name. What is happening in South Africa, we are against it.
Who are the we? Are the we the ANC?
No. The South Africans abroad.
Oh.
Like Phumzile, she called her, she expressed herself. She raised her voice because that's what Nelson Mandela wanted us to be, to speak out. This is what we want to show everybody else. We as South Africans, we are against xenophobic attacks in South Africa. So please, your listeners must join us on Saturday. Bring your national flag. If you have something to want to write, bring it up in writing already, so that we can put these things in our petition and memorandum to say, this is what we are saying as South Africans abroad. But I must also say, because you said to me, it's my last response, I must thank you and Galaxy Radio for the courage of you bringing such a hot potato topic. Some people don't want to discuss about this. I'm pleased that Africans want to sit down and find ways how we can work together as Africans. We must start to respect one another. It cannot be that when
you are beaten up and people steal what belongs to you. I'm watching. I'm unable to report this thing to the police and point you up. What have you done? It cannot be correct. It must start with us as South Africans in South Africa to be able to report whatever crime that may be, little or big. And our justice system must start to take place. Not just arresting people, give us numbers, how many we have arrested. Put them behind the bars so that Africans can be confident to return to South Africa and do business with other Africans in South Africa. As South Africa is a destination for business. Just now, Tandamara, before I finish, we are bidding for Commonwealth Games to be hosted in Durban in South Africa. South Africa is ready for these games. We are calling our African brothers to come join hands with us. We are saying it's not every South African is like that. It's certain people that we are going to expose them. We don't just want to expose and shame people. We are going to demand in our petition and memorandum to the government, once you arrest him, put him behind the bar. Don't arrest him and the next day he comes up, because when they come up so easily, that's what others see. And then end up doing the same thing and again and again and again. So this xenophobic attack keep continuing.
Okay, my brother. All right. Well, we've got to close it there. Thank you very much for your contributions this evening, brother leader. It seems we're really well. Let's take your closing comments, my brother. Tendai Mwari.
Yeah, Tendai Mwari. I just want to thank brother Ada for his spirit. Brother has a beautiful spirit, loving spirit, and I really appreciate you, brother Kala. We didn't agree on very much this evening, but I think the dialogue must continue, and
of course,
in the hope that we will come closer and closer to an understanding, But I do believe that your intention is good, my brother. I do believe that. I feel that from you.
Thank you, brother.
And Sister Pumzile. That call really, really moved me this evening.
Wonderful.
Especially as our sister is from Azania, South Africa.
Wonderful.
You have touched me this evening, my sister. I hope I get the chance to meet you one day. Very quickly, the two major points I want to make in closing, and I'll be as concise as I possibly can. Nelson Mandela is a question of a figure of enigma for us as African people, and must be understood in that way, because whilst he's been risen up as a political and cultural icon and even a saint, there are those who believe that Nelson Mandela has let us down and has allowed himself to be used by the hands of global white supremacy to maintain its system, one of its bastions in South Africa. And in fact, Lord Renwick, who was the then ambassador to South Africa in 1991, did say that that we, i.e. the British, were the ones who trained Nelson Mandela's bodyguards.
Lonebreak, what does he know about Mandela? Lonebreak was just commenting.
Well, he said that the British trained Mandela's bodyguards. They built the security around Mandela, and they were the major negotiators for Mandela's freedom. So that the British establishment that had huge investments in the mines of South Africa really saw Nelson Mandela as the savior of British economic investments in South Africa. And at that time, we were at the end of our at the end of the tenure of Margaret Thatcher, whose husband had huge investments in South Africa. But very quickly, I mentioned the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes,
that really robbed Africans of justice and gave amnesty to white mass murderers, meaning they could not be tried for the crimes that they committed against African humanity, the atrocities that they committed in South Africa. And many people were disappointed about that. But understand this, even Desmond Tutu, who was Nelson Mandela's right-hand man in that truth and reconciliation process, even he has expressed disappointment. Even he has said that he's disappointed with the behavior of white people in South Africa. Recently, he said white people should consider themselves lucky that Africans are still prepared to work for them and not kill them. Are you aware of that comment?
Well, look,
Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu. He said white people must recognize the privilege they have gained from apartheid and must be willing to divest themselves of that privilege if the problems in South Africa is to be solved. White people are not prepared. This is Bishop Desmond Tutu. Let me finish, my brother, because I didn't interrupt you in your summary.
I wanted to...
Desmond Tutu said that.
But I wanted to say, Tandamara, you must remember, we're talking about M-Pessin, who was the chair of the actual thing. But the question perhaps we should say, did the Truth Reconciliation did justice to those who suffered?
No, it did not.
If not, then why are we not going back to that angle?
As far as I understand it, many South Africans feel that Truth and Reconciliation Commission did not do justice. It robbed Africans of justice, especially because there are African political prisoners who are still languishing in prison today under the ANC government, which the ANC government, Nelson Mandela did not release, Thabo Mbeki did not release, and Jacob Zuma does not look like he has any intention of releasing. Whilst you give amnesty to white mass murderers. That can't be right. So in terms of solution, one of the things that can and should be done is that these African political prisoners are released.
I settle with you on that one.
And just very quickly, Mangaliswa Sobukwe, the founder of the Pan-African Congress of Azania that broke away in 1959 from the African National Congress, whom they felt at that time had gone off the rail. Yeah? And Mangaliswa Sobukwe said even then that he was disappointed with the ANC because it was allowing it had allowed the white liberal left to take control,
communists,
of the vision of the ANC and have imposed multiracialism. And he said multiracialism is racism multiplied. And he advised us that that was not the way to go. As you know, my brother, Zephaniah Motompeng, one of the leading members of the Pan-African Congress of Azania, who interestingly was one of the many people who died in 1990 under suspicious circumstances. He said, our liberation will not be brought about by Africans will not be brought about by any other Africans themselves having to struggle for it. They will not be achieved at the negotiating table. Africans themselves have to liberate themselves. Liberation will not be achieved at the negotiating table. Zephaniah Mutompeng said that. He said the power of government should be in the black people's hands in South Africa. That you cannot, a multiracial philosophy is not the answer for African people in South Africa. The ANC has moved away from those basic principles. And as I said at the beginning, Amandla away too. That was the battle cry. Power to the people. Maibu ye Africa. Let Africa return to us. What's that? Africa. Africa belongs to us. Those are the fundamental principles upon which our brothers and sisters had shed blood for freedom and for liberty. They must get their land back. They must have the power to be the masters of their own destiny. And the ANC has done everything to block that. Tendai Mwari.
Tandamurai, in closure, I think...
right, we did have our closure already.
Yeah,
this is literally going to have to be one line.
There was a caller here earlier on, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Bob asked a question. Can Africa survive without Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Tendai Mwari, for most of Africa's history,
I'm asking that purely repeating
Africa
it because
built
of the closure.
Great civilizations, the rudiments of which Europe, Asia, including China, the Americas, have learned from and drawn from those rudiments to build their own civilizations. So for most of Africa's history, Africa functioned independently of any other nation, any other race, and did so powerfully and successfully.
Okay,
we did it before, we can do it again.
Next time I will have my response.
Okay.
Next time I'm here, I will have my response.
All right, Tenamari. Brothers and sisters, Tenamari, this has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan and Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM. I just want to say tatenda to all those who contribute to our program this evening. Thanks specifically to our Galaxy management and also to our producer, Brother Olatunji Heru. Join us again next week, brothers and sisters, between 8 and 10, where we talk it straight and make it plain. Tendai Mwari.